Hello. So our guest today is John Camajani. He was a stage manager at Beach Blanket Babylon for nearly the entire run of the show, working with both of our past guests, Bryce and Rhonda. While there, he communicated with every department and ran the show, ensuring that everything was going smoothly. While he was there, he saw location changes, complete overhauls of the show, celebrity guests, and much, much more. So thank you so much for being here with us, John.
Hi, everybody. You can ask me anything you want, and I'll try to answer as truthfully as I can, as well as I remember it. So just jump in and ask me anything.
Awesome. All right. So, John, what got you into theater?
Well, to be honest, I was a high school dropout, and I finished about 15 minutes of class work at Lincoln High School, and then I was a hippie for a year and a half back in the 60s, and I decided to go back to school, so I graduated from John Adams Adult High School, and that last semester that I was there, some friends and I got together a show. We did A Christmas Carol, and it was around Christmas time that, of course, we were doing it. And I had so much fun just doing all the stuff that, is encompassed in putting on a show, building the set, setting the lighting, helping with the costumes, working with the stage, and all the people that I got to work with. I just decided that that was probably a path I should follow. And so I graduated and I went to City College for 2.5 years, and I was in the drama department there. And I graduated from there, and I moved on to San Francisco State, and I was in the theater department there as well. And I got a BA in drama, and I did a couple of years of summer stock theater in Pennsylvania. Most of my friends from SF State were doing summer stock, but they were all going to Allen Hancock College down in Santa Maria. And I decided that I wanted to do something different because I spend my semesters with all these people, and I wanted to go out and meet some new people. So I went to Pennsylvania, and I worked in a converted dairy barn theater for 9 weeks, and we did 8 shows, and it was the most wonderful experience. It's in me that I love theater so much, and this was a great experience because it showed me how theaters out there in the wild really work. You can go to San Francisco State, or you can go to any college that is really well funded, and you see how it can work if the money is there. But once you get out there in community theater, and just working for whatever company, and you aren't paid a lot, but you love what you're doing, that's a thing, and it was for me. After a couple of years of that, I moved to Philadelphia, and I worked in the Philadelphia Drama Guild scene shop, building scenery for the resident theater company there. And then I subsequently got a job on a cruise ship as an assistant stage manager, and I worked on the Royal Viking Star, and I sailed for a year and a half, and I met my wife there. Actually, she worked in the beauty parlor, and I was the stage manager. And we got together, and the rest is history. And we moved back to San Francisco after we were married in '78, and we lived several places around the city, and finally moved to Sonoma. And here we are, and that's what got me. And I still love doing it. And I would, of course, I wish Beach Blanket was still going, but
Yeah.
I don't get to choose on that one. But if there were other shows that could be financially worth it for me, I would certainly do it. After I left Beach Blanket, I had been driving for a Lyft because my daughter was driving, and she seemed to be making money hand over fist all the time driving in the daytime, and so I took that up for a while. And then I also drove for California Wine Tours, being a chauffeur, wearing that black and white monkey suit with a little black tie, and driving Suburbans and Lincoln Continentals to people going to and from the airports around the Bay Area, SFO, Oakland, and Sacramento airports. And I love doing that because it was easy. I knew where I was going, and I didn't get lost or anything. So that was a good thing. So, and here I am in the middle of the pandemic with all you guys.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you also did some time on a cruise ship working there. How
Right.
is that different than working like in a theater on land?
Well, it moves a lot, that's for sure. And one of the things you have to get used to is the movement of the ship when you're building a set. And the sets were not like we know, like they're not made out of lumber and plywood. Everything is made out of thin cardboard, and it was all taped together. This is 1977 and 78, so it's probably changed a lot since then. But that's what we were doing. We'd make these cardboard and crepe paper sets, and it was fun for the passengers, and they got to know us, and we got to know them, and they went on on all the shore excursions that were offered, and my wife and I also were able to go ashore because once the passengers were all ashore, there was nobody to entertain
Well, yeah.
on my end, and there was nobody who needed a hairdo in the beauty parlor. So we were both able to go ashore to, whatever port we happened to be in. It is a little different. Back then, it was like I said, crepe paper and cardboard sets that were all taped together. We did have a sound system. We didn't have cordless mics back then.
Oh, wow.
It was everything was on a cord, and we had one spotlight, and the lighting console sort of were actually switches on the wall. You could turn the lights up and down as you would see fit, and of course those bank of switches were on a wall about 10 feet away. So whenever I had to go change the lighting, I would have to tell the people, don't move because I can't move the spotlight while I'm over here. And so that was a little bit of a clusterness. But it was different, and I'm sure nowadays it's a lot different. It's a lot more high tech and a lot easier to run for one technician, because it was back then it was just me as a technician running the lounge show, and the other stage manager would be running the movie for the evening. So the passengers had a choice what they wanted to do. But it was fun though. I got a kick out of doing it, and of course I got paid for going around the world.
Well, yeah, and that's the dream.
I certainly didn't get rich. They paid me what was it, $125 a week, and my wife in the beauty parlor made $24 a week, and it's terrible.
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's not great.
By today's standards, God, I wouldn't even answer the phone for $24. Anyway, so she made $24, but she survived on tips. And of course, we got 3 square meals a day and a place to sleep. We had our own cabins, so we could, have some privacy, and there wasn't anything to spend unless you were going ashore, to buy some local artwork or whatever from whatever country you happen to be in.
So when you first started as an ASM at Beach Blanket in 1979, did you think it would pan out into a 40-year-long career as a stage manager there?
No, absolutely not. I thought like Steve Silver, the producer, thought, when he first started, he thought, let's just do this for like 6 or 8 weeks, and maybe that'll be it. And I had no idea it would turn into my my life's job. I thought maybe 6 weeks, until I got a job, because once I got off the ship, I sent out resumes to everywhere, to ACT and a lot of the other places around the Bay Area, to try to find a job either as stage managing or working in their shop, because I'm a scenic carpenter. That's the other thing I do. And when I got hired at Beach Blanket, I thought to myself it'd be like 6 or 8 weeks, and then something else would come along. But I sort of found my niche there. I loved the show. I loved what the show did. I loved what the show was all about, just being crazy and having a good time, and having 350 or more people, go out the door laughing and screaming and having a great old time. That was the stuff that I loved about it, and Steve Silver, every year we would shut down for 2 weeks. He would write a new show. He would, or if he didn't write a completely new show, he would pull out some of the bits that were in the show and put new ones in to kind of update it for whatever was happening in the news that day. Joe Schumann Silver, the producer, used to say, if something shows up in the newspaper or in a magazine, within 24 hours at least, we can have that bit given the Beach Blanket warped point of view and put it on stage, and it gets costumed, it gets added. It gets
Yeah.
rehearsed with the others, and it also gets rehearsed with all the technicians. And that was one of the fun things about it. You really had to be on your toes when things were changing
Yeah.
like that. 'Cause,
Well, to that kind of actually leads into my next question. What was it kind of like keeping track of everything in the show that was just constantly changing, like Beach Blanket was? Like you had to learn new cues, learn all this other stuff.
yeah, it was a nightmare. trying to keep up with everything, because sometimes uh, Steve would throw a new bit in, or he would change a lyric, and Kenny Maslow, the director, used to say, it doesn't, this little change doesn't affect anybody, without realizing that it actually affects everybody. And just one little line change or one little movement change on stage is a big thing when it comes to how the technicians view it or hear it. My job as stage manager wasn't actually sitting at a desk over on stage right and paging through a cue sheet or a cue book. It was more, I just told the house lights to go out, and then the show pretty much ran itself. So every cue that needed to happen, whether it was opening the flats to make somebody enter, or changing a light cue or a spot cue, all that stuff was taken from the dialogue or a music
Yeah.
cue or something from the band. And so it pretty much ran itself, and we just needed to keep up with what was going on stage. It was close enough so we could hear what was going on stage. And after a few times rehearsing any new bit that went in the show, we sort of got it down, and we didn't need to be on book. Some of us did. We keep a cue sheet in our back pocket, and just to make sure that that new bit that went in tonight is going to be as easy as we think it is. But we rehearsed the crap out of a lot of those things just to make sure that they went
Yeah.
well. So
What would you say is the most memorable show experience you've had, and like why did that one stick with you?
well, there were well, I like to talk about the perks of the show. We were in 1997, we did two what we called travel shows. We packed up some of the original, what I call the mother show that performed at Club Fugazi. We packed up some of those bits, and we take them on the road to wherever a client wanted us to go. We would do hotels around the Bay Area, and we would pick specific things out of the mother show and put those on stage. And Kenny, our artistic director, would write a show for that particular client. Now, we didn't take things out of the mother show, because the mother show would run no matter what. These were bits that we duplicated, the costumes and the bits and the songs and all that stuff that we did, and we put that on stage wherever the client wanted us. We did a 15-minute travel show in Maui. They flew us and all our stuff over to Maui, and we were there for 4 days. The show was actually 15 minutes long. I probably actually worked about 7 or 8 hours just getting the whole thing set up in a Hyatt hotel in Maui. And the rest of the time, they made me sit around the pool and drink Mai Tais. It was awful.
So with trying to transport such a large show, I'm assuming there are like some sort of challenges and other adjustments that you had to make to fit in with different audiences and stuff. Like how
Yeah.
walk us through some of the challenges of that and everything?
Oh yeah. Well, also in '97, in May of '97, we were invited to the Covent Garden Opera and Music Festival in London, and we had to completely duplicate the entire show. So it meant building new sets, building all the costumes, figuring out the lighting, and then how to transport it all. So we got a guy who builds crates in San Francisco, and he built us these huge crates that we filled with costumes and props and hats and all kinds of stuff. And we stuck it on a ship, and we shipped it over there through the Panama Canal and across the Atlantic. And we were there for 3 weeks. It took us a week to set it all up and rehearse it all, and then we performed for live audiences for 2 weeks. And that was a big deal, because that we had probably did 2.5, 3 months worth of prep work before we could actually put it in a crate that it would fit in, put it on the back of a truck, have that truck go to the port to where the ship was waiting, and then load it all onto the ship, and then the ship would go flying over to, well, not flying, but sailing over to London. And we unloaded the trucks that they brought from the London docks at the theater in Leicestershire. That was the area, the West End, where all the other theaters are. And we loaded all that stuff in, and like I said, we rehearsed it for a week, and then we performed for 2 weeks. And that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work to duplicate the show, but I think we all love doing it. There's always ups and downs when you have a big project like that going on, and there is no perfect job, but as far as I'm concerned, this is as perfect as it could get for what I wanted to do with my theater career.
So, speaking of England, in 1983, you welcomed Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip to San Francisco with the show at Davies Symphony Hall.
Right.
What was it like doing such a high-pressure event, and how did you work through it with the team?
Well, that was quite a festive thing. The Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth were coming here at the request of Ronald Reagan when he was president, and they came to San Francisco, and my boss, Steve Silver, directed the whole performance that happened at Davies Symphony Hall. He had the Marine Marching Band, he had the University of California Marching Band, he had the whole symphony, he had some of the opera performers, and it was quite a big deal, and we rehearsed that for about a week ahead of time. And each individual section of that, the symphony and the opera and whomever else would rehearse their bits in their own space on their own time. But then about a week before, we started coming together at Davies Symphony Hall to rehearse that. And it was quite an honor. My wife is English, so I've got a connection there to that, and it was quite a feat to put that on. And they say that at her whole time here in America, that was the only time she was actually filmed on camera smiling, because she has that English reserve where they don't give away their emotions or anything. It's it's just something that they don't do. But that was one of the first times that she was actually caught smiling, and my wife was very happy with that. So there's that.
So you were meant to do a pretty large show the day of the 9/11 attacks. How was it trying to adjust when so much was up in the air and everyone was in shock?
Well, yeah, that was quite a stressful time. We were due to perform for International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union, and there were 2,500 or 3,000 of them who were going to have this performance scheduled for 8 o'clock in the morning on 9/11. And I got up at 4 o'clock to get ready. It takes me about an hour to get into the city, but my call time was 6 a.m. So I, got in the car at 4:30, and as I was driving down, I was listening to the news on the radio, and I heard that the Twin Towers had been attacked. They hadn't actually come down yet by that time. But and of course, I had my cell phone, and I was calling everybody to find out, are we still performing? And right at that moment, at 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, it was still scheduled to go on. So when I got to Bill Graham Civic, where the performance was, I met my boss, production manager Rick Markovich, who was in charge of all of us, and we kind of went back and forth. We had discussions about whether we should continue to perform. How dangerous do we think it is? I mean, is any of what's happening in New York, is any of that going to happen here? Because at that point we didn't really know what was going on. I mean, it was anybody's guess as to what was happening. But and we made a few phone calls to people who were still on their way to let them know that we were right at that point. We were still planning on performing, but then when 7:30, 7:45 rolled around, Willie Brown, as mayor of the city, said, "I'm cutting off any large gatherings of people for safety reasons, because we don't know at that point, what else is going to go on." So we, even though we had loaded in and rehearsed the day before,
Mm.
and all our stuff was ready to go, we had to just stop what we were doing, and we were all sent home. We didn't even, I don't believe we even packed up that day. I think we waited until, we had more information about what was really going to go on, with respect to New York. And then, of course, the towers came down.
Yeah.
It scared the crap out of everybody.
Well, I mean, with so much like in the air and everyone's just concerned about what's going to happen next, like I mean, that would have been.
Yeah, and it's awful not knowing. I mean, your life could be in danger, and you wouldn't know it. And you have to kind of tiptoe around the rest of the world, wondering, what's going to happen or what's not going to happen. So
Mm.
yeah, so that was a little scary.
So Steve Silver's death was pretty shocking and tragic for
Yes.
everyone involved. How did the show and everyone who was working on it adapt and kind of change the show a little bit?
It did change a little bit. Steve kept it very quiet until the announcement was made around Christmas of 1994. Of course, he passed away in June of '95, but he had kept it secret because he didn't want it to get out. That he was sick, and what's going to happen to the show, and he didn't want it to affect the audiences of the show. He just wanted to keep it private and to himself. So Kenny Maslow, the artistic director, made the announcement at a company meeting we had in late December '94, and said Steve had been diagnosed with HIV, and it's kind of getting out of control. And of course, we were all freaked, but we didn't know what was going to happen. Another one of those, we don't know what's going to happen kind of deals. And we were all wondering, is the show going to keep going? Are we going to have to all go, look for another job? Kind of like where we are now, but for a different reason. And then in June of '95, actually it was February 6th, 1995, which was his birthday. When he did a final appearance with a lot of the cast members dressed as Christmas trees at the AIDS Memorial Grove in Golden Gate Park, to which he had been given a $100,000 excuse me donation to keep it going. We had just had our 20th anniversary in May of '94, and half of those proceeds went to the AIDS Memorial Grove, and the other half to the opera, I think. So he split those up. So $200,000 went to those two businesses, and so that was his last public appearance. And then there was a gathering of the company that night at Charlotte Schultz's place up on Green Street, and it was kind of like our final goodbye to Steve. He was just sitting in a chair, and everybody would come by and say hi, and give him a kiss and a hug, and it was a little weird to be saying goodbye to somebody that I had known for 15, 20 years in that manner. And then in June of '95, he passed away. His funeral was at Grace Cathedral, and we only shut the show down for that one day so that everybody could attend his funeral. It was Thursday, June the 15th, I think. So we only shut the show down for that one day. And then that Friday, we all came back and we continued on. We had a company meeting with Joe Schumann Silver, because at that point, she and Steve had been married, so that she could take over the show. And so she said, right now the show is going to continue just like it always has. We may make a few procedural, administrative changes, but basically the show is going to be the same as you remember it. So, let's get out there and live and make it all happen. And we did. We, as a tribute to Steve, because he had taken good care of us for so many years, we put our all into it, and it ran until it stopped running last year.
Mm-hmm. So on a bit of a lighter note, one of the most prominent aspects of Beach Blanket as the show were the changes that it made over time. Was there a form of the show that was your favorite, like that you saw and that you worked on, that was like, this is my favorite one, and why was that one important to you?
Well, there was one little bit where Val Diamond, who was the star of the show back then, she did a bit where she wore. I guess you guys know that we're known for our big hats. She wore a hat that had a Gucci bag and an Hermes bag on her head, and she wore it, and she sang a song called "Shop Around" from the late '50s, early '60s, and she had two people who were a guy and a gal, and we call them the nerd and the nerdette, and they did this dance with her on stage, and it absolutely blew the back wall out. I mean, when she was singing "Shop Around," if you ever want to Google it or YouTube it, listen to it originally. I can't remember who it was who did it, but it's one of those knockdown, drag out, great songs. And she was wonderful. She was, as good as she could be, and that was one of the highlights for me. And I also like being able to control one of the hats and how they run. Part of my job at the end of the show was to run the San Francisco hat. So I had my little box of switches and buttons backstage, and when it was time for the hat to light up, which it did, and there was a pyramid on the middle of it, and that grew, and that was one of my favorite things to do too. You know.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So obviously this show was a constant in your life for quite a while. How was it kind of always having that and being there the whole time, seeing it of all the different groups that you kind of just you and the show always being there?
I loved it. Because like I said, when I after I got past that, it'll only be 6 weeks, and when I was promoted after the first year to be stage manager, I just felt it was my niche, and I felt that was my place to be there. And I was more than willing to be there for anybody, anybody who wanted to rent the theater on a Monday or Tuesday when the show was dark. I was always willing to be there and to help out. And like I said, it was my niche, and
Yeah.
I felt great about being there.
Yeah, that's how we all feel about technical theater.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips for us students who are trying to get into theater professionally?
Yeah. Actually, I was interviewed one time by somebody a long time ago, and um, they asked me, what's it like trying to get a job? And I always like to think that it's not, if you're going for a tech job in theater, no matter what theater it is, and you see something on Craigslist or on some theater listing, and it says we're looking for a technician, we need a costumer, we need a prop person, and you send in your resume. The people who are offering this job are not wanting to hire you because you need a job. They're hiring you because what's on your resume and how well you do your interview is what they're looking for. They want to make sure that any skills that you have are exactly what they're looking for. So the more well-rounded you are, the better. I thought that when I was at City College, because I took, and at State, I took costuming, I took lighting, I took set construction, painting, and stage management, and also scene design. And I learned a lot from each of those classes over the years. And like I said, the more well-rounded you are, the better chance you have of getting your foot in the door of a theater company that you want to work for. And I think what you really want to do is like put your best foot forward. Like I said, they're not looking to hire you because you need a job. They're looking for somebody who can fill a spot that they need filled. They're looking for a costume or somebody who knows how to sew, and somebody that they don't have to think about. That was one of the things about my crew, Bryce included. Once he got to the point where he could do the job without being supervised by a principal, I didn't have to think about him. And if I don't have to think about my technicians and wondering if they're doing the job right, then that's all the better. I let them do what they do, and I don't mess with the way they do it as long as it's beneficial to everybody. So think about what job you're looking for, or where you want to put your best foot. And you may want to say to the interviewer, I really like building sets. Do you have a job like that? Or they may be looking for a costumer, and you just have to put your best foot forward for whatever job you're applying for. So
Nice.
the more well-rounded you are, the better.
So I want to pass it over to Mandy to ask some of the questions that you guys put in the chat.
Amy.
Okay. Let me pull up the first question. Scrolling back up. Okay. First question is from Tessa. What are some of the most difficult productions you've worked on, and what made that difficult?
You mean specifically with Beach Blanket or any of them?
I think she means any of them, but any of them, yeah.
Okay, all right. I worked what did I do? Like I said, I did 2 years of summer stock in Pennsylvania. The first year, everything went as smooth as you could want it to be, and it was 9 weeks of working every day and every night, except for Monday nights when we didn't perform. And that first year was absolute great fun, and I really, really learned a lot about how theater works out in the wild as opposed to how it works in school. The next year, there was a different producer and a different director, and they and I didn't see eye to eye on how things should function, and that made it really difficult, because I thought, I've got the skills as a stage manager to make this thing run as smoothly as possible, which is what really everybody wants. But they seem to throw up a lot of roadblocks in my way. You can't schedule that because we want to do something else, and it got to be very contentious between me and them, and it made the whole summer not quite as much fun as the summer before. But my bottom line is all we want is to put on a show and make things run as smoothly as possible. So I had to come up with different ways of figuring out how to make the show move forward and be as smooth as possible, without anybody getting hurt on stage or having any angst about doing the show. The smoother it is, the better for everybody, really.
All right. The next question is from Alyssa, who is our stage manager, one of them. How did your BA in drama assist in your work in stage management?
That's a good one. Actually, even though I sent in my resume to various places, nobody ever asked to see my BA degree. They just didn't. It never came up in the conversation. I mean, they saw it on my resume, but nobody ever asked, what was it like going to school? What was your favorite part? None of that. Basically, what they wanted to know is, can you do the job for which we are about to hire you for? Obviously the BA degree showed that I had gone through several processes to get to where I am today. Being well-rounded, taking all those courses, learning a whole bunch, and especially in stage management, because the stage manager is an overseer of all those various departments and trying to make them coordinate with one another, excuse me, so that they can get the job done. But being as well-rounded as I became in school, that's the thing that really helped me a lot, I think. Did that answer your question right?
I'm not getting a response to that, so I'm assuming.
Perfect. All right, I got a thumbs up. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Alyssa.
So more on stage management. What advice would you give to new stage managers?
Don't do it. No, I'm kidding. No. Find another job. No, it's fun. Being a stage manager is a lot of fun. And I can tell you, I evolved from one kind of stage manager into the stage manager that I became toward the end. I have to admit that I am somewhat of a control freak, but not so much that I like to get in people's faces about how I would like things to be done, and I'm susceptible to the instructions that the artistic director or the producer give me, and I'm to implement those instructions. And I know that there's a lot of people who would like those instructions, but basically they have to do them anyway because that's the job. Where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. Great. I know. So as I started out as a stage manager, I used to be a lot more aggressive. I would yell a little more. I would make a lot more noise about things that I wanted to get done. I wouldn't call anybody any names because that's counterproductive. But I did, I did become kind of a yeller and a screamer because I wasn't getting the things that I needed. People would show up late and I'd yell at them for being late, and they would retort with, "Well, I'm here now." Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't cut it. And so I suddenly realized, well, maybe not suddenly, but gradually realized that yelling at people doesn't really get you anywhere. It just makes everything tense. It makes everybody, on edge. Oh, here comes the stage manager. Better not do that, or better not say anything. And then I sort of evolved into a stage manager who could kind of gently coerce people to do what it was I needed them to do without actually yelling at them. But do it in kind of a way where you can be perceived as being forceful, but not too much in your face with your coworkers, your cast, your band, your technicians. They all know what the job is that they're supposed to do. And our job as stage managers is to make sure that they do it. And once you are confident that each of those people know exactly what they're supposed to do, as it comes to cast, they know when they're supposed to enter a stage, where they're supposed to enter from, and how they're supposed to traverse backstage, all of that stuff. If they know what they're doing and you know that they know what they're doing, then you don't have to think about them. And that makes everything a lot easier to deal with. Because basically, like I said early on, I just called for house lights out and the show ran itself, and everything was just sort of there. And it all happened. Mistakes happen. Things break, costumes break, props break, even hats break. You just had to deal with them as they came up. You try not to let those things happen. You have your crew check things before the show to make sure that everything is functioning correctly. And if it is, and then something breaks, well, stuff happens. It's live theater. You can't beat that. So yeah, so you just have to be on top of it, and not be too in their face, but also be firm enough so that they know that you are the boss, and they should be doing what they're told, without being too, controlling.
Yeah, one of the things I remember being told was, be assertive, but don't be aggressive and don't be like too passive. So just gotta find that in between.
Yeah, that happy medium. Yeah, you don't want to be screaming at somebody who you're trying to get them to do something. If you can find a better way to coerce them. I don't really like the word coerce, more like suggest to them that maybe they should, do their preset now, so that in case anything is broken, they'll have time to fix it before the show. Some of that was hard for me because I would say to somebody, "Oh, that hat broke last night. Can you get it fixed, by half hour?" So that we'd have a half an hour to make sure that that particular hat or that prop was fixed, and we could let the cast member know who used it that it had been fixed. Or if it was a hat or a costume, we would try it on to make sure that it absolutely did fit and did work right. So you have that extra bit of time. That didn't always happen. Sometimes it was 5 or 10 minutes before curtain, and you'd have to say, crank it up. We got to get started here in 10 minutes, and we don't have enough time to do all these fittings. And that's why you want to have everything completely done by half hour if possible. But like I said, shit happens, and you got to deal with it as it comes up.
Yeah. Our next question is from Kira. In terms of employment, what would you say is the best way to build a portfolio or resume for a career in the arts?
Start with, I think what I learned in school about resumes is the person who's hiring wants it short and sweet. They want to see what school you went to and what you learned in school, very briefly. I took these courses, and then very briefly the highlights of some of the shows that you've done and what position you played in that particular show, whether it was sets, costumes, you acted in it, you sang, whatever. They want to know that, and if you can get all that on one piece of paper, short and sweet, that's what they want to. That's what they want to see, I think.
Okay. I think this is the last question. How do you reflect on the part of your life that was managing Beach Blanket Babylon now, and what were some of the most valuable things you learned from it, in your opinion?
Wow.
It's a long question.
Well, like I said, I started out as an aggressive stage manager, and I kind of mellowed over the years, and I cherish it. I cherish my time at Beach Blanket because I was there for 40 years and 5 months, and that's a long time for anybody to have a job. The longest job I had before that was working at a gas station when I was in college. I really cherish that time. I did learn a lot. I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about how theaters work, and they're all different. They all have their modus operandi about how they like things done, and however they do things that makes things happen for them. That becomes their managerial style, and that's what you want to look for. See if you can fit yourself into the managerial style that works well and has worked well for any company that you want to work for. How's that?
If
Was that good?
anyone else has any more questions,
Anybody else want to dive in here? Don't be shy.
A question. You can either unmute yourselves or put it in the chat, and either Mandy or I will ask it if you don't want to unmute.
Yeah, actually, hey, John.
Good.
40 years, a super long time. I know people back in college, the professors, who would say they wouldn't even want to work on it for a show for more than 1 or 2 years, just because it would get boring and monotonous doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
How did you ever feel that working at Beach Blanket over those many years? Just it being too repetitive and you want to try something new, or did that never happen?
Well, yeah, it did happen. On occasion, it would feel like that. If the administration, Kenny and Joe, didn't want to put anything new in the show. I remember Steve Silver said in 1986, after he installed the center balcony in Club Fugazi, we shut down for 2 months so that we could put this balcony in to add another 50 or so seats. And we opened Beach Blanket Babylon Goes Around the World. And he said to me the next year, after I asked him, why aren't we shutting down to do some new stuff? And he said, when you've got a winning recipe, why rattle that cage? Let it play, because we're selling out 2 to 3 weeks in advance all the time. Everybody wants to come see us. People come from all over the world to see Beach Blanket, and people bring, locals bring their relatives from out of town. And I think the changing of the audiences and changing of the bits helped me get over that sort of 9 to 5 feeling. It's like, I got to do the same thing over again. I got to pull the flats. I got to open the curtain, yada, yada. And it never really got me down. It was a little frustrating because it seemed to be sometimes, if there weren't any new bits in the show for weeks or months on end, it would seem like, like you're just a gear in the machinery and you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that could get a little boring. But then there were the times when you were in the middle of a boring episode, that something crazy would happen on stage and you'd have to jump out there and deal with it, no matter what it was. There have been a few times when I had to stop the show because something happened on stage that needed dealing with right off the bat. For example, Madonna flying over the audience, the machinery stopped working and I had to get a ladder out on stage and unhook her in front of the audience. And of course, audiences who see stuff like that are just enthralled with it because they got to see something that most people didn't get to see. And it's episodes like that where it breaks up the monotony that you can feel. You know, I'm sure every long running show probably has that feeling too. So there's that.
Right. Well, if we have no other questions, which doesn't appear as though we do have any more in the chat, thank you so much for coming and talking to us, John. We love
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I'm glad to have met all you guys. And good luck in the theater world. Break a leg.
Thank you.
Thank you.